start from the top of page Chuvov again. We went through a couple of lines. Without getting into the real principles behind it. We're into identifying the phenomenon of mochin. Versus Middah. Middah, the word Middah means a measure. And we already learned about here from Middah, Gvul, and Chum. In principle, a Middah, a measure, and what Middah alludes to a definitive presence, almost to the point of tangibility. Not necessarily tangible by hand, but it's tangible within your thought. The principle of tangibility is that this is something that you can encompass completely within your thought or in your hand, whatever it may be. You can embrace it. Mochin is a totally different reality, a different realm. Our simplest, though not conclusive, not simplest demonstration, allusion to a mochin type of awareness is the sky. The earth, we walk on the top of it, and we can certainly identify its presence by our own personal experience. The sky, we cannot even begin to think in terms of where does it begin or where does it end. How can we see it? There is no possibility not to see it. As we explained, that this is the way the REBBE created man, the human being, that as he stands and he sees the earth, he will simultaneously see the sky surrounding it. And yet, this awareness of the sky is very real to the intelligent human being. I said the intelligent human being, one who identifies things on an intelligent level rather than on the worldly, tangible level. There is definitely the possibility of a person submerging himself in physicality and not being aware of anything beyond that. But that's blinding himself. That's kind of dismissing a very important part of what the REBBE has given him. As we point out all the time, on the physical level, This is sight versus touch. Touch is something that is verifying things on the lowest worldly level. Sight is something which is true only to the intelligent mind. On the most lowest physical level, this is the eye. The eye, everybody can readily see, the eye versus the ear or the hand is the most fine presence. It's completely translucent. Doesn't resist anything. This physical reality is a reflection on the physical level of a higher and a more spiritual level. This is like the intellect versus the Middas, the seichel versus the Middas. As I mentioned in the onset, Middah means a measure, which means that in Middah you're identifying with definitive finite elements. Whereas in Seichel, you're identifying something which is not definitive and not finite. And here is a very simple illustration of this. You're a guest in somebody's home or at a wedding. The Midas part is what you're being served and what stories you're being told, and whatever it is that engages your presence there. But the real thing that's happening there is not definable. It's not in a Middah state. It's not measurable. Like I said the other day, you're a guest in somebody's home, and he serves you a luscious lunch. You look at the lunch and say, "Oh, that's really good lunch. I'll pack it up into the bag and I'll eat it in my kitchen." It's possible you're going to eat it in your kitchen, but you have forfeited the reality behind it. In other words, this type of an attitude we call blind idiocy. You only see things from a Middas and from a tangible level, from a worldly level. You don't see anything from the life, from the neshama level. The neshama level, it's not measurable, it's not tangible, but that is the reality that is given to the human being. This is where mochin, this is where the human being is supposed to really function. So we say mochin, hasaga, comprehension. It should be recognized that even though this is just understanding, That is the real place. Excuse me. That the human being identifies his presence with. Now, what is the basis of this? Because the tendency from our worldly perspective, you're projecting something that you project, that you want to see because you prefer to see it. There's nothing real there. It's your own, so to speak, imaginary creation. Definitely there is that possibility, but that would be a complete misunderstanding. And there is the point which I want to just establish on the onset. Everybody can will the Mitzvah Shem and recognize it individually. This principle that we discussed already, you are a guest in somebody's home. And to take the food with you, saying thank you, but taking the food with you and eat it in your home is an offense. Who is offended by it? Not the palate, not the stomach, the human being, the neshama. What does this neshama represent? How real is the neshama? The reality is the world, the tangible world. What's so real about the neshama? The answer is that the neshama represents the creator of the world, who is above the fray, who is independent totally of the tangibility of the receptacle. Who speaks in life terms only, in the reality terms only. In etzem hadover, what's the reality? That is what that a human being in his intellectual level relates to. Yes, it's only intellectual, and it's only understood, there's nothing to touch, but that is the reality. Why? First of all, this is on the human level, this reality, and this is when you come to the principle that this is the divine gift to the world. This is attesting that this is a divine creation.
Today we're focusing on how seichel is like the sky, not definitive.
But real.
But real, exactly. It does seem more generally we think of seichel as working with definition, and I guess we're talking about seichel as it originates.
Be'etzem hadover, the seichel be'etzem hadover. When you're talking about definition, you're talking about the applicability of seichel.
So on the level of application or of consciousness, seichel does deal with definition.
True,
language.
but that's not about the consciousness is incorrect. Consciousness is incorrect because we are very conscious of the sky, of the indefinite, undefinable aspect. This is where you live. Proof: you stand on your 2 feet. Why don't you crawl on 4?
Right.
Can you explain how you stand?
So something is real and undefined as the sky. Our consciousness relates to that too.
That's what the intellect.
The basis, in a way, it's the basis of consciousness or intellect.
That's right. The important thing that I wanted to recognize, that the reason this is so real to us is not because of our own recognition of it. Our own recognition of it is always precarious, always questionable. What do I get out of it? Who needs it? Who needs it? Oh, I enjoy seeing it. Okay, you enjoy it. The veyesh is bora lekim l'shamayim v'zoretz. To recognize that this is the reality that God has created. And that is the reality that God implores you to live in.
Right. Seemingly that applies to both sky and earth.
True. Both sides that bring the sky to the earth, elevate the earth, refine the earth, and bring a godly truth to the earth. This is our job, to refine and live on the earth, but in a superior and a pure manner, not to be swallowed up on the earthiness.
To remain on this call, press 1.
I was learning English. I was communicating with Moshe. Silver, yeah. And as I was communicating, I was learning the Rambam. And as I'm learning the Rambam, it struck me an interesting thing. The Rambam talks about the mitzvah of lira min hamikdash. It's a mitzvah to fear, to stand with awe in the Beit Hamikdash. And the Rambam goes on and explains. You should know. You're not standing in awe, you're not fearing, so to speak, the Mikdash. That's not what you're fearing. So what would be, in your mind, what would be the conclusion of that sentence?
Rather you're feeling the creator of the world who is revealed in this image.
Not the Mikdash, the Mikdash is a place where God is made the house of God. I mean, otherwise the Rebbe is everywhere. So you would think, not Amidah Shatiyori, but the one who dwells in this home. Right? Instead, the Rambam says, the one who commanded, who gave this command of Yira. This is the pure intellectual cognizance. When you say he is present there, this is only a kind of a midas. This is recognizing his presence on a tangible level. Misha Tziva B'Yosei.
It's saying Misha Tziva is kind of even more
remote.
Even though you're dealing with a so-called physical house.
Yeah, but he commanded you.
Yeah.
This is an important principle to understand as we are learning about mochin and all that, is that the reality behind that mochin level is not only the creator, but that the creator wants you to live at that level and to recognize this. And it is all drawn and supported by that. This is what I'm pointing out. The reason a human being stands up on 2 feet, which is not logical from a physical perspective, totally not. And yet he insists on standing on this, because he insists to relate to a different reality. Not to the physical reality, but to divine reality. I'm here because I was put here. I'm here a visitor. Again, anyone who had the chance to listen to that talk that we had some years back, that's titled Intellect versus Instinct, there are many meaningful expressions over there. One thing that I said over there was, the animal also has life. The human being is alive and the animal is alive. The difference is, human life is a life is a reality in itself. Animal life is the life, it's a living body. It's primarily a body. It's a living body. Human being is not a living body. Living body is life per se, in a body. But primarily he is life. He's focused on the life element rather than the body representation of it. And then, demonstrations of this is endless.
And that's seichel that we're very
The seichel, that's right. This is what we're going into to understand mochin. And in mochin Gufa, the Rebbe says there are 2 madrigas in mochin. Okay, now we already went through this a couple of times, but we have to try at least to relate to this, and to the point where it actually opens up a new perspective, a new vision of reality. Again, time is almost up, but I want to start from the top of page Kuvov. We are talking about Atzilus versus Bria, and we say that Atzilus and Bria are very much separate. Atzilus is not comparable to Bria at all, and the Atzilus of Bria is not comparable to a Atzilus of Atzilus. Even though in Bria too there is what's called mochin, which means there is also there too a consciousness and an understanding and a comprehension and a sense of something which is not worldly, which is a truth beyond world. Nonetheless, in comparison to Atzilus, it's a completely different thing. To put this in perspective and give us a little bit of a handle on this, so the Rebbe goes on like this. Veyesh, what can be said over here is, the klal was bechinas hamechin de brio. that the beginning of mochin of bria. Overall, which means what is the darya. There are many different parts of mochin, even in mochin bria. But the overall stance of mochin of bria. Hey, beginas mochin ashayochin al hamidus. The that begin of mochin that ashayochin al hamidus that actually belong and relate to midas. What is that conjure up in our mind? It is mochin, and you know the truth, but you immediately recognize its pertinence. What is it about? There is a means, so to speak, to take this mochin and use it to enhance midas, or to give meaning to midas. Mochin hashayochem al midas. Once we say it's mochin hashayochem al midas, you already have, so to speak, defined mochin not on the pure mochin level. Pure mochin level would mean a consciousness that does not need a tangible part. But mochin hashaychel hamidos, that those mochin that do get, so to speak, substantiated and verified by their effect on the inner midas. For it is not what immediately demands an explanation. If you say this is mochin hashaychel hamidos, why do you call it midas? Why mochin? Like I said, calling for that talk, a living body is not life. It's life for the purpose of maintaining the body from rotting away. But it's body that you are experiencing. So if this is mochin hashayochem al midas, what are you experiencing? Mochin or midas? And this is what the Rebbe goes on to explain. We are talking about mochin. But in mochin itself, there is mochin hashayochem al midas, and it is still properly called mochin. And the experience is still a mochin experience. For behold, it is known that there are two madreyes in mochin. The two madreyes in mochin are identified as follows: mochin be'etzem, mochin, pardon me. Be'etzem, that which is mochin in essence, unto itself. Mochin hashayochem al midas. Then there is another mochin is mochin that are hashayochim that pertain and that relate to Middas. So mochin be'etzem means that you understand something, and the understanding, that's the end of the story. Be'etzem. This is the total presence of this understanding. The etzem meaning of understanding, that is what you have. That is mochin be'etzem. Not mochin. The mochin there are not inferring what the effect should be elsewhere. It gives you a perspective of mochin be'etzem, of a completely different realm of reality than you're used to in the world. This is mochin be'etzem. What is the phenomenon of this? What is the purpose of this? What do you get out of it? Why engage in it? And of course, the answer to all these questions is there is no answer. It's mochin be'etzem. It lifts you out of your quagmire, so to speak, of the quicksand of being absorbed in world. And it lifts you to a different reality. Mochin be'etzem. And thus, there is a distinct difference between what mochin be'etzem understand and what mochin hashayochim al Middas understand. As we shall see, mochin hashayochim al Middas are also extremely effective. In other words, the mochin are the ones who are instrumental in creating the Middas. So they're real. But it's a different level of reality than mochin be'etzem. And this we'll have to leave for Pashas Kisisa.